Hello. Time for week 45, book 45, and we have The White Book by Han Kang. Um, this is her 2016 book, but published in English just last year, and well, just this year actually, 2025. Um, let's see. That makes everything except for We Do Not Part something that I've looked at so far. Um, okay, so this one's a little bit different for her. Um, she's included quite a bit of white space, as the title might suggest. The book's about things that are white. It seems like an odd topic to some extent, but it works for her because here's what she's talking about. Now, I don't know if this is a true story or not. It's really not the point because it may be fiction, who knows. But it involves a main character whose mother had given birth to a premature baby, premature sister, several years before her own birth. And this premature child passed away after uh, 2 hours or so of life. And so the book deals with this loss, which is a strange loss because she has no sister in real life. And if this sister had lived, her mother probably would have not gotten pregnant with the pregnancy that produced the main character, who may or may not be Han Kang. I don't know. Okay, so it deals with the haunting of this child, and the part of the point here is uh, this child died obviously before speech, before really understanding anything of the world, and the only words it heard from the mother were "please don't die" and "please don't die" and things of that nature, because the mother at the time was living in rural uh, Korea in a very isolated environment in the winter, and they didn't have a phone. The phone, no, closest phone was like a 10-minute walk away, or something like that. Maybe it was even further. I'm not really sure. I don't remember exactly, but the closest phone was far away, and the husband had gone to work and wouldn't be back for 6 hours, and there was nothing that she could do. She unexpectedly gave birth. It was a surprise. She was like, I don't know, like a month or so, 2 months premature. Um, and she did her best to save this little life, but there was nothing that she could really do. And she died there. And then when the husband came home, after taking care of his wife and those kind of things, he took the infant up into the mountains and buried it in a family plot or something. It was, all above board, nothing creepy, nothing weird, nothing like what you'd expect from like, Stephen King or anything like that. Nothing like that. A very flat, naturalistic um, approach, except the ways in which language haunts. So the baby was small, it was premature, and the mother compared it to a rice ball because of its very pale color and its size and its sort of squishiness. You know, a cutesy type of term, not meant in any way to mean demeaning or anything. Kind of a cute little term for this little, rice ball that she gave birth to that unfortunately did not survive. And the mother was somewhat haunted by this death because this is a child that could have been that wasn't. And, you know, forget all the narratives about politics and stuff. Losing a child is even a unborn child is extremely traumatic for parents, particularly parents who are wanting and welcoming this new life. And that's exactly what happens here. Is this is a new life that was welcomed that did not make it, but it made it for 2 hours. And that's where the main character's focus lies, in this way in which maybe this child has been haunting her life, um, not obviously physically, but more in a metaphysical kind of way, because she relates other stories of people being haunted by loved ones and things like that, hearing them and things like that. But this child, remember, died before speech, died with only hearing one phrase repeated that they didn't really understand, other than the fact that it perhaps understood that it represented care, represented concern, represented love. That's all this child has. And so that's kind of where Han Kang's imagination takes her here. And that whiteness, that white book, that relates to the white swaddling cloth that you put a child in Korea. That relates to that white rice ball, with all the associations that Korean culture has with the word white and with the white space in the book. Okay. And so, in a way, this book is almost like an elegy for the way life works, because she's elegizing this sister that she never met, that she never really kind of had. But it's also, if that life had survived, her own life might not exist. So there's also a meditation there on that trade-off, that our lives, even though we may be peaceful, we may be, the nicest loving people in the world, our lives, to some extent, always depend upon the absence of life in others. Perhaps the animals and plants, perhaps in this way, in a sister, uh, not meant in any kind of mean or sadistic way, but just in terms of a practicality that life depends upon death. So how do we handle that? How do we deal with that? And that's the sort of thing that Han Kang is focused on here. She's not being morbid. She's being very caring and being very precise and trying to just tease apart that space in which we live, in which you know we exist because other things do not. We exist as a choice, and this is a choice that has been made by um, the universe for to some extent, that we will be here and this unborn sister will not, or whatever. And these kind of calculations are often made, as in this case, by a seemingly unfeeling, amoral universe. You know, this, whatever was going on in the mother's life at the time, whatever was going on with her biology, this child came too early. Whatever was going on in the child, it was not as viable as it could have been. The circumstances which it came into the world, had it come into a modern hospital with a modern incubator, perhaps it would have had some chances. But in the situation that came into the world with no care other than what this unexperienced young mother could provide for it, um, it had a hard way to go, and it didn't make it. And that's the way nature works. Nature is uncaring and unjust. This is a fact, and this is a fact, and this is a fact, and we move on. The narratives that are created, what we make of it is what we make of it. We see the pattern. We make the narrative, and that's the sort of thing that seems to interest Kang here. And similar to her other books, she's dealing with people who don't quite fit in to the mainstream. People who see kind of between the cracks. Not, but they can't really articulate what they're seeing, and that space of inarticulability is, I think, what she's getting at over and over and over again. The woman and the vegetarian. What exactly was wrong with her? She was believing that she was turning into a plant. It had something to do with the role of women in patriarchal Korean society. It's something to do with her own dissatisfaction with her own life. It perhaps had something to do with her own just unique take on the world in general. It's something to do with art, with the art that her brother-in-law makes out of her, and something to do with sexuality. Okay, but it's a complex of things that comes together and falls apart, or comes together and means more than it seems to, or something. And that is kind of what I see Kang doing over and over and over again, taking these little bits and pieces that might be considered disparate or not quite fitting together and making something of them that fits together and articulates something that otherwise remains unspoken. And that's kind of what I see her doing here too. In in a way, the white book, the whiteness of page is part of what she's talking about. She's expressing a certain kind of solemn solemnity of silence, solemnity of absence. And yeah, this is because of the white space. This is a fairly straightforward read, but you do need to read it almost as kind of prose poems and meditative, and certainly not as a narrative because there is no narrative here. Um, the back says it's a meditation on color as well as an attempt to make sense of the death of a sister who died in her mother's arms just a few hours after she was born. Like I said, okay. So to give you a little sense of it, is how it starts with a list. In the spring, when I decided to write about white things, the first thing I did was make a list. Swaddling bands, newborn gown, salt, snow, ice, moon, rice, waves, Yulon, white bird, laughing whitely, blank paper, white dog, white hair, shroud. With each item I wrote down, a ripple of agitation ran through me. I felt that yes, I needed to write this book, that the process of writing it would be transformative, would itself transform into something like white ointment applied to a swelling, like gauze laid over a wound, something I needed. And that particular meditation goes on for a couple pages, but then we have a chapter called Door, or a meditation called Door. It's only 3 pages long. And then more white space, and then swaddling bands, and then newborn gown. So all those words and others become chapter titles or meditation titles or poem titles, whatever you part titles. What I don't know exactly the right word is, but they become titles of parts of the book, and they inform the book as she says there, something that she needed to write. And that's where I don't know how factually accurate it is. To some extent, it doesn't matter because the whole point is the process of making, the process of discourse about the loss and the grieving of a sister that kind of was and kind of wasn't. And this, you know, very interesting book. I would definitely recommend it. Pretty easy read. Is it a good entryway into Kang? I don't know. Maybe. Um, I still think that the book of hers that I've read, Human Acts, which is the most, I think, fleshed out, is the one that I found to be most striking because I had more to hold on to. But that very lack of stuff to hold on to might be part of what she's up to. Um, so of those that I've read, The Vegetarian, um, Human Acts, The White Book, and what was the other one called? Um, Greek Lessons. Greek Lessons, I would say, um, it's okay, but maybe not the best place to start. I think one of the other ones might be better. Okay, so The White Book. Go get it, read it. Good book.